So can Americans stop Trump before another 100,000 people die? Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. To start, if a group of international billionaires who don't like democracy, they don't like business regulation because it reduces their profits, and they don't like the idea of a functioning multicultural, multiracial, nation, if they hired somebody specifically to destroy the United States, to throw us back into the worst parts of our past, to exacerbate our tensions, to make this country a more miserable place, to kill as many Americans as possible, to do as much damage that will last for decades to the American economy, they couldn't have done a better job than hiring Donald Trump. Americans are dying from a pandemic disease at rates that we haven't seen in 100 years, while other countries have it under control. A handful of Trump-connected lobbyists have pulled in over $10 billion for their clients in a stunning example of how he has completely corrupted our federal agencies, virtually all of which are under the control specifically of lobbyists who Trump put in charge of these federal agencies. And of course, the white racists are on the rise. They're having their movement, the Boogaloo Boys and the whole bunch of them, killing protesters, tearing down statues. Over the weekend, they tore down a statue of Frederick Douglass. You know, as most Americans are watching this freak show of Republican governance, capital R Republican governance, with horror, there's a small group of American billionaires, and I would say international billionaires, the billionaires who helped put Donald Trump in office. They come from Saudi Arabia, they come from Israel, they come from Russia, they come from China. Seth Abramson's done a great job of compiling the list over in his book, Proof of Conspiracy. They're just, they're happy. Billionaire Rupert Murdoch has his Fox News network running overtime, pumping out racist memes, phony outrage. The right-wing billionaires who fund Freedom Works and other such groups are pushing hard to end unemployment and other benefits so Americans are forced to return to work, even when it means getting sick and dying. Down in Brazil, President Jair Bolsonaro today or yesterday vetoed legislation that would have provided masks, free masks to people, poor people living in the slums of Brazil. Well, at least they had a policy to provide everybody with a mask. The Trump administration won't even talk about that. I mean, the policy never got put into place because Bolsonaro vetoed it, but ever since April 6th, when the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, right across the board, April 6th, everybody reported the breaking story that black people were dying and Hispanics were dying at about twice the rate of white people from COVID-19. Ever since, it took a day or two for them to digest it. So it was really April 8th and April 9th. But if you go back and look at the news stories, what you see, and you can see this in the if you subscribe to the New York Times or the Washington Post, any of these papers, you can go back and look at their archives. You will see that it was in the days immediately following April 6th. I pointed this out on this program. I said, this is going to happen. On April 7th, I was talking about, this is what's going to happen. And sure enough, within a day or two, it did. April 8th, April 9th, all of a sudden, you had the groups supported by the right-wing billionaires, you had the right-wing media, right-wing hate radio. All of a sudden, it's just a common cold. It's just a flu. We need to go back to work. We need to open the country back up. And, the Trump administration basically is working as hard as they can to expand infections. They're even using the force of the federal government to require the largely Hispanic and black workers, about half of them Hispanic, a little over a quarter of them Hispanic, black, in the meat processing plants to return to work. The Defense Production Act. You must go back to work. You know, we Americans have gotten quite used to Republicans and their billionaire buddies stealing from us and ripping us off. It's been going on since the 1980s, since the Reagan Revolution. That was where it really all began. Crushing unions, destroying competition through monopoly. Walmart went from, 100% made in the USA, Sam Walton's original slogan, to, 100% made in China during the 12 years of the Reagan-Bush administration. And now it's a standard way of life in this country. We've been ripped up by Republicans and their billionaire buddies. But now, unless you're wealthy enough to safely and comfortably shelter in place, Republicans and their billionaire buddies are openly encouraging the death of more and more Americans. Back in the 1920s, Herbert Hoover ignored the crash in 1929. And therefore, the Republican Great Depression continued for 3 long years, leading to massive wreckage, including economic damage and torn apart families that echoed through our nation for generations. My mother's family lost everything in the Great Depression. And her mother never recovered. Her father had a heart attack, and frankly, she never recovered from that. The Trump depression and over 100,000 unnecessary deaths show us that a president who is not only incompetent, but also openly malicious can do even more damage than Herbert Hoover. And Republicans across the country still support him as billionaire-owned and supported media continues to pump out a steady stream of pro-Trump propaganda. The Supreme Court handed these white racist billionaires the sword that they're now using against you and me in their Citizens United decision and the ones that preceded it. And if we don't get money out of politics, and if we don't vote every single Republican out of office at all levels, all the way down to dog catcher, this effort to tear America apart and kill more low-income and minority Americans will continue. Anything else is just putting a Band-Aid on cancer. You can find my thoughts on this over at buzzflash.com this morning. Can Americans stop the Republican Party and their billionaire lifeline before another 100,000 die? What do you think?